coming up on The Source.
To believe that education is like, I know it's not the answer, but that would like kind of solve it.
Because there are teachers who are just ignorant. They lack true knowledge. They lack true understanding. There are people with PhDs, doctors, medical degrees who are just ignorant.
Go to one of their work sites. Look at where the tags on the cars are, right? They're coming from right to work states.
It's time to be serious about our community, and I'm going to keep bringing this to you.
If they're
Sue the city gets sued
all the time.
They were so focused on getting me off that, not having me chair that committee, that they didn't even know that I was placed on public safety.
Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
Tanae Darby.
Welcome to The Source. Today's show, we have a whole lot going on, and we really need to try to get through all of this because we've not had a full plate, but Shanae has been out saving the world. So now she's back. We got a whole lot to discuss today. First, I want to, as I always do, let's just talk a little bit about the 4 shootings and one which was fatal that happened in our city over the past week. The 27-year-old man was shot just on Tuesday, and then last Saturday we had 3 in, I think, a vehicle, and one of them, which is a young lady, have now been identified, she did die in this tragic event.
Yeah, so the young lady who passed away, she was 29 years old. That shooting took place on East 23rd Street in the 300 block. She leaves behind her children, which her youngest is in kindergarten, right? And now that's another child of the city of Wilmington who's going to grow up not knowing their mother, right? This violence has to stop. And it's very sad, right? 3 people were in the car, and 2 of them were seriously injured, and 1 fatally killed. But we still are asking for the same thing we were asking for in 2021 and 2022. Is what is the plan? How are they going to address this? And what services are going to be offered to those families and to those communities that have now been uprooted again, right? Because of this violence that continues to come through our neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I just think it's traumatic because Danielle's, her first 2 kids' father was also killed and murdered.
Oh, wow.
So it's a constant, like for kids, like being exposed to losing a parent. They lost their dad, and now they lost their mom. It's like traumatic that our kids are experiencing in Wilmington due to gun violence. So
Yeah, it's really getting worse and worse, where they're becoming almost not sensitized any longer to these things. But the traumatic effect is just unbelievable. I have another issue beyond the fact that there's no real plan. Why is it that the Delaware Online, the only official newspaper for the state of Delaware, why are they not covering any of this? Do we not matter?
So the reporters over there, they try to get as much as possible, but they are, and I've talked about it on this show before, they are extremely short-handed. There has been cuts after cuts after cuts since Gannett purchased the News Journal. And Gannett is the company that owns US Today, has been purchasing up newspapers and online media sites all across America. And we've seen this replicated where they come in, purchase, right? And then they gut the infrastructure that's there. So where you used to have 3, 4 city reporters, you now have 1, right? When you used to have 5 breaking news reporters for our county,
Mhm.
you now have one for the whole state.
Wow.
So, dealing with that makes it very hard for reporters to get content in. And then when they do get content in, it's no guarantee that they're going to run with that story anyway.
If we didn't have Fox News, not the national, but the local
Fox
Channel
29.
29, to be able to report some of this, as well as I give WDEL credit too. They've been doing as much reporting as possible. We would not even know some of the stuff that is going on. We would not be able to hold people accountable for not providing us with the information and the things that we need them to present us with. And I just think that the value of our lives is really looked upon as very less. And I just think that's just horrible. So this last week we had 4 shootings that we're aware of. Now, I did share with you all last week how there was some shooting that happened over here in Southbridge, and one of the police officers didn't know anything about it. It's like, really? But I thought there was a shooting report, and I know we got some stuff around, especially on our church, where we could, if any gunshots go off, it's supposed to
Right.
alarm people. But I don't see that whether or not that's working. I don't know. How do we get a chance to see if or not the systems that they have in place are working?
Well, you can ask to take a tour of the real-time data center that they love to promote. And you can reach out to your council members to ask them to also do it as well too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that some information should just be public. Like they
It should
should be
be.
reporting it, and they're not, and they don't want to for certain things.
Mhm.
But certain data should be reported so that we're just abreast, know what's going on. And I think it's just there's no will to. There's not a will to. It's not going to happen.
Wow. Well, we got a lot to cover today, and we hope at some point maybe I'll call Councilwoman Harley and see if she'll join me on a tour so I can see how these operations work, because it's just interesting. And let me also, before we go to some of the other local things, it kind of mesmerized me to find in the national news that St. Herbert Catholic School, where these Caucasian children, young girls, decided to spray paint the face of one of their colleagues and use all kind of slang and derogatory language to them in honor of Black History Month. Before we speak on that, let's just take a quick look at how it was covered on the
Philadelphia
media.
teens caught in this shocking racist video, spray painting one girl's face black and making comments like this.
I'm black and I'm proud.
In another part of the video, appearing to mock Black History Month.
You're a black girl. You know your roots. It's February.
The appalling video posted on social media and then shared widely, leading to protests outside St. Hubert's Catholic High School for Girls, where 3 of the teens are students, according to the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.
How dare they? Son needs to be dead today.
Parents and civil rights activists calling on the school and Archdiocese to take immediate action.
I want justice. I want reform. They have to do something.
Nicole Hines saying she pulled her daughter out of the school after alleged racist conduct.
They would scream the N-word, or they would, just a lot of microaggressions, pull on their hair and laugh about it, video it.
The Archdiocese says it was only made aware of that video yesterday, but has seen it and forwarded the matter to the Office of Catholic Education. This video, recorded off school grounds, is no less disturbing.
You're nothing but a slave. After this, you're doing my laundry.
A 4th teen in the video was from another school, Franklin Town Charter, issuing a statement condemning hateful behavior and saying the former student who took part has, quote, no place at our school. It's unclear if the student was enrolled at the time of the video. The Archdiocese issuing a statement calling the behavior vile and saying the students allegedly responsible are not present in school and are being disciplined appropriately, adding any other students involved will also face disciplinary action. Quote, we take this opportunity to be abundantly clear that there is no place for hate, racism, or bigotry at St. Hubert's or in any Catholic school. But community leaders are calling for more.
When I saw the video, it was a form of oppression and a form of marginalization.
Chad Dion Lassiter, director of the Pennsylvania Human Rights Commission, says the Civil Rights Enforcement Agency is offering bias and cultural sensitivity training to the school.
I think it's very important for these young people to know what blackface is. But we also need to make sure that we're not assuming that they don't know what blackface is.
But he says outside the classroom is where the work really needs to occur as well.
The school can do what they need to do, but the work really in earnest has to happen in the community, in those homes.
Now, you had an opportunity, those of you who are watching, to see, to hear what they said. But what does DeSantis say? I don't mean to. What does he say now when he is blocking everything that will open up the door to give some knowledge on the history of African Americans, what we've been through? Not just this is some 1 month situation. We've been through a whole lot in this country, and you have little white girls who are just making mockery. Wash my laundry. You're gonna go home because you're nothing but black. What do you say about this? I don't know how to even cover it.
Yeah, so DeSantis is trying to win the race of who can be the biggest racist in America. And we've had Trump, we've had a bunch of other people, but DeSantis is systematically changing what's going on in Florida. And this is in Florida, right? Let me be clear with that. Issues like this have come out of Florida, right? Whenever you start banning books, especially educational books, especially books that teach about what the impact was of the civil rights movement, people like Dr. King, Malcolm X, Ella Baker, and people who were organizers, Rosa Parks, right? You start banning that, you start erasing what happened. And when you fail to learn from your past, you're going to repeat it. And some people may disagree with me and say we're already repeating parts of it. We are, because there hasn't been enough education about where we came from. Right. And some of those systems
come through.
Right. And some of those systems that were put in place back then are still in place today.
Right.
And the lack of education, right, either applies to some of us who get into the system, right, because they become the token, and then they become the face saying, oh, this is a racism because I support it also.
Right.
So you have to deal with it in a full circle.
Right.
And we have people right here in Delaware who do the same thing.
Wow.
And I think we also, for me, I think even educated white folks or people still are racist and ignorant, right? So I think education is important, not knocking it, right? But I think even with the information or knowledge, people are still going to be racist, right? And I think to believe that education is like, I know it's not the answer, but that would like kind of solve it. I think that's like naive of us when we look at history. Some of the most racist people are teachers working at institutions like colleges. They're researchers. They're all sorts of people with education who knows and has access to this information. So I want to say it's both. I think education is key.
But when we talk about ignorance, it's not about how the levels of education you have. You can have a PhD and still be a racist, but most racism comes out of ignorance, not knowing truth. So therefore, they give their own truth. That's I think that's what you would. Well, they can deny it, but that shows the ignorance piece of it. Because I don't want to.
But can they deny it if they weren't taught?
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not even learning about Black history, is it really you denying it, or you had no opportunity to learn that your way of thinking may have been wrong? Right. That's the education part that we're talking about with banning the books in schools.
Because real scholars, real scholarship is about opening up your mind to understand what you don't know. It's about being able to let your intellectual curiosity get the best of you. A lot of things that I disagree with, I had an opportunity to study. For example, when I went to theological seminary, some of the religions I studied were just horrible, but it gave me a better understanding of it. So therefore, there are some things I respect in different sects of religious organizations. But it doesn't. But when you're ignorant, it's like I don't know, don't want to know, and it ain't worth anything because it's not what I believe. And that's why. So I wanted to make sure that, in my opinion, that we don't confuse being educated with, because there are teachers who are just ignorant. They lack true knowledge. They lack true understanding. There are people with PhDs, doctors, medical degrees who are just ignorant don't want to know any better. But these were young girls. They've been taught that the value of black people is lessened, and no, it's not being taught in the schools. Now you're right. There's something I agree with you in this area. There are some teachers who would probably take that same course and just run with it crazy, do crazy stuff, and not teach truth. But I still think the exposure is very important in the time that we live in and in the world that we live in today. I just feel bad about it.
I agree.
So I don't know, but that was troublesome to me, and I wanted to bring that to the front and let people who are watching us know that we are still in a race, we're still in a battle, and we're going to have to at some point come to the reality that our value is just lessened by people who I don't think really care. And then it's going to transfer me into another topic I want to talk about that's kind of like on your list, but I want to just talk about it. It leads me to some of these politicians who are, in my opinion, voted to represent our community, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. When I heard about the mini bond bill and how all of the African American representatives supported it, it gave an opportunity for us who may not been able to play in the game to get in the game. Only one voted against it. And he came from humble beginnings. He came from a system. It's not like he had a silver spoon in his mouth. And I'm really shocked. Matter of fact, let's talk about that now. Instead of waiting until the next segment, I want to deal with this whole mini bond committee vote for the workforce. And before you get started, Sister Shanae, I want those who are in the back room to please put up the vote that just went up. I want you to see for yourself. Those of you who are listening, watching us, I want you to see this vote. Same old, same old. Here's the vote. So what's your comments on that as we start this conversation?
Yeah, so I wasn't shocked or disappointed in seeing that he voted no. I think he has one. You think about the last campaign when I had ran against him, the unions did not endorse him.
Who is it?
Huh?
Who is it?
Oh, Representative Nnamdi Chukwu.
Yes. And he represents what area again?
He represents the first district. So
Okay.
the first district is pretty much North Wilmington. So it's a combination of the councilmatic districts, which is 1 and 2. So he represents the whole, pretty much north side, and then a piece of like the Trolley Square area. So he represents that. I ran against him last year, and these are some of the issues that we talked about is like his support of community initiatives. And this was one of them. Like community workforce agreements are to benefit local residents and benefits underrepresented communities who don't get the opportunities to be on these state projects, right? When we're talking about construction and development. DBEs, the disadvantaged business enterprise. Those allow for-profit construction businesses who are minority-owned, woman-owned, to have access to these state construction projects, right? And to vote no against that.
I wonder why. Now you had a little you had a little thing. Well, who fund you, run you.
Run you.
So he was not endorsed by the union.
No, the unions did not endorse him. He was endorsed by a lot of anti-union organizations. One of them is ABC. I'm not sure what it
American Builders Contractor.
American Builders Contract Association. They endorsed him and gave him money. So those are the type of people who he's willing to allow to accept funds from. And who funds you runs you. So why would he vote against who's giving him money?
And just to give a little bit more background on SB 35, which is the mini bond bill, right? So what it does, right, is allow the state to go up to at least 6 in a pilot program, up to 6 CWAs, community workforce agreements. And community workforce agreements are in simple terms and conditions, right, of what the labor force is going to look like, what the community and minority participation is supposed to look like on a certain public project, right? And by public, we mean anything that is getting our taxpayer dollars, right? So whether this is going to be upgrades to schools, this is going to be road work.
Mm-hmm.
All that would receive public dollars.
Right.
Now, the issue, right, isn't just that ABC donated to Namdi, right? No,
Mhm.
it's because people like him are backed by individuals like Bachini Pollin.
Ah.
That too.
And
Ah.
That too. I
Pollin,
forgot that.
Ah.
Yes.
right? You look at all these groups, you look at these projects,
Ugh.
go to one of their work sites, look at where the tags on the cars are, right? They're coming from
Yeah.
right to work states. You have people coming all the way from Ohio, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Jersey, who are coming in, getting these dollars that the city's giving out to them already, right? To do these projects. They're getting downtown set aside money as well too. So more taxpayer dollars for building downtown. And they're not pinning those dollars back into our community,
Wow. So I'm
right?
starting to understand it better.
Yeah, BP.
So
I
if
forgot about that.
someone,
Mhm.
right, and we have a strong labor force here.
Uh-huh.
If someone, right, who lives in Delaware, lives in Wilmington, right, gets hired on a project,
Mhm.
well, yes, they're getting, payroll tax and stuff like that. Guess what? Now hopefully they're homeowners. If not, that's fine. But if they're homeowners, you have property taxes that are coming back into the city as well, too. If they're eating and sleeping here, what does that mean? They're probably paying the electric bill here. They're probably going to restaurants here. So they're putting it back in our local economy. They're buying at our local shops as well, too. So the money comes back into our community,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Most likely their kids go to school here.
Right.
Their kids go to the local community center here.
Yeah.
So now they're donating there,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So wouldn't you want your local economy to function right so that you wouldn't have to keep raising taxes and talk about, oh, the city has no different revenue sources, so we're going to raise your taxes by 11% altogether?
That's horrible. Yeah.
And then you're
Yeah.
probably going to do it again. You're not going to do it in 2024 because you're up for election, but you're probably going to do it again.
But we're going to remind that it happened right after.
Right. And then you're going to have,
Yeah.
a majority of council who's going to go along with it
Oh yeah, they
because
got
they
this.
got some extra money in their, discretionary fund and ARPA money
Uh-huh.
to raise our taxes. Oh,
Unbelievable.
it's only going to be a few dollars each check.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah. So I guess the mayor doesn't. He would have voted no too, right?
Yeah, the mayor administration would not support anything like this. So there was something similar
Uh-huh.
that happened in the prior session. It was like the local hire legislation, they called it.
Uh-huh.
And they were calling for Wilmingtonians who live here,
Mhm.
who has the skilled work to do it, to be hired, to be priority for work that we're paying.
Mm.
We're giving subsidy money for them to do. We wanted local hire. On top of local hire, we also wanted to make sure that people were getting paid fairly.
Mhm.
And that people were having access to training so that they can get the skills that they need. So something similar, not quite as like community workforce agreements, but very similar in holding contractors accountable in our city to make sure they're hiring Wilmingtonians, they're paying them, giving them hours worked, and that they're making sure that they're skilled and getting the training that they need so that we just don't put them as the hold the stop sign.
Wow.
Right, we need them to be skilled.
So it's just for the person who's watching us, I need to be with you and understand we have a golden opportunity to bring dollars back, recycle dollars in our community. And one of our elected representatives voted against it. For what? And this is why we need good journalism. This is why we need a newspaper and somebody to be able to ask the tough questions so that you can vote with intelligence. Not because you like him, you saw him at the community center, or he was such a nice little kid growing up, or was able to write a good poem. But it becomes important that you understand voting against something like this it's like he's controlled by someone. Now that I'm hearing.
but here's the thing also, right? The city's developing. We had almost we had over $250 million in permits go out. $253 million. Right? That's great. How much of that money comes back on these projects? How much is coming back to our community?
Yeah, we don't have
Less than
inclusionary
2%.
zoning. We don't have a housing trust. None of those things to.
Wow.
Less than 2%. That's just for the workers.
Right.
That's just for the workers.
This is just not good. For those of you who are watching us, I just hope that you will really take serious when we are voting in 2024. It's time out for people stopping by with a chicken dinner and offering you an opportunity to get a picture with the right person, and then all of it's time to be serious about our community. And I'm going to keep bringing this to you. We don't have anyone else to represent us. It's time for us to start getting rid of some people. I don't care if they've got a face that looks like your skin complexion is yours. If you're not voting to support and enhance our community, you should not be there. And I'm very concerned about city council too. I'm going to get into that at some point because we're going to go back to how we first started giving out grades for what you've done for the black community lately. Somebody got to speak up and be able to do those things, because if you're just sitting there and you black and you're being enriched, your pockets are being enriched, but you're not helping the community that you're representing, somebody needs to expose that. And until we can get the right media coverage to do it, we're going to keep doing it. And you may say, well, ain't nobody watching that little show. Trust me when I tell you, they are.
They are.
They are
People come up
watching.
to me all the time.
They are watching.
They're like,
Trust me.
good job, or
Listen, you're gonna have to start giving shout outs. I've been taking selfies recently. It also plays at Planet Fitness, so shout out to Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
I'll be down there sometimes, and I'll be shocked when I see my face pop up on TV. That'd be the funniest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, somebody calling us now to tell us we got to move on. So we're gonna move on. But trust me, they're watching, and we're gonna keep talking about it. We'll be right back. And we're back. Well, there's a whole lot going on. You have not been here for a couple of weeks, and you got a whole list on your agenda. So let's go after it. City council first. I want to know what happened in that first district.
we got our first district appointmentship.
Okay.
It's Vincent White.
Yeah.
So I know his background is in like real estate. He served on the Civic Association, Wilmington Housing Authority. I think he sat on their board. So I think he's very like integrated and knowledgeable about some things. With that appointmentship, again, with the process, we had 3 people. So we had Kobe Owens, Vincent White, and we had Harold Gray, which was the husband of the late council member Linda Gray. And today is actually, this week is her birthday. Because I know by the time this airs, will pass. But all 3 of them, they came to interview. We go into executive session. In executive session, we're supposed to identify each person we interviewed with a number or a letter, right? And then we're supposed to come out and vote. Again, the same process. The law department told us it's illegal for city council to vote in executive session. It is a FOIA violation.
It is.
Right? However, the majority wants to stay. So we stay and we vote. And then council people do not want to vote out loud. So they have us vote on a piece of paper. So we voted on a piece of paper. Yep. So we voted on a piece of paper, and it was actually what had happened was no one got the majority vote. I think one person got like 3, another person got 4, another person got 5, right? So it was like all over the place. And the top 2 was Vincent White and Kobe Owens. So Harold Gray got the least amount. So there was a whole discussion. At first, everyone was like, okay, Vincent won. Let's move on. One of the council people stopped and said, no, that's not the majority. Now we have to go with the top 2. So that's when we end up going with the top 2, and Vincent White end up winning. And
Do you know what that vote was?
No, I do not know, because they want to write it on a piece of paper.
Well, how do you know he won?
Trippy, council member Congo and his staff, they counted together.
Oh, I like Brother Trippy. I don't care. See, that's why they say you're not supposed to vote in executive session, because no one knows what that outcome is.
Yep.
I mean, while I believe, Trippy would not, I like him. I believe he's shown integrity since I've known him.
Yeah, I agree.
But still,
I agree.
It should have been a public vote. Now, this is what I miss Jay, because I need to know legally, how does the legal department say this is illegal, and they still override that and do what they want to do?
It's just his opinion. We're going to stay here.
How's
And
it?
they try to justify that it's the right thing to do. One council person even says, when we go vote, like when it's a regular election, it's private by yourself. No one should know. I said, but we're not regular
Absolutely,
constituents.
you are
We
not.
are elected officials.
Right.
That this is a violation. And she's like, well, like they're fine and okay with it. They're okay with doing things illegally.
I need to ask. I hope I can get one of your attorneys out there. I need to figure out whether or not that's something we can sue the city. Well, you can't sue the city, I'm told.
You can sue the city. The city gets sued
All the time. Okay.
You can do it
Wait,
for each vacancy I've been at has been like that. So for
right.
each vacancy has
I'm
been
gonna figure that
illegal.
one out. And I got some friends, and I keep saying what I'm gonna do, and then all of a sudden it ain't got done. Okay, we're gonna see, because that's especially if we know that they're not supposed to do it. They've been advised not to do it. They did it, and then you go into a secret ballot, and then the city council president come out and say a certain person won.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Come on, I'm not buying that. You may have won, Kobe. We got to call Trippy and find out whether or not he gave somebody extra votes.
Look, I'll say this. It is what it is now. I don't like dwelling, on the past. It's not going to stop any of the work that I do in my community. And anyone who knows me and anyone who came out to speak, I'm grateful for you speaking. I'm grateful for people who reached out to me and said they sent letters on behalf of me. I'm gonna keep doing what I do, and that's
To be
all.
honest, this council don't like young people, and they don't like people with new ideas. Listen, okay, because Vincent White, Councilmember White, does not know me. Like we never met. I don't know him. I never heard of him until he applied, and I'm reading about him. Never met him before. And at our first city council meeting, he votes in this coup to get me off of chairing a committee.
Oh, gee.
And he doesn't know me. I'm thinking he's going to vote at least present, like, like I'm here. I'm not a yes or no because I haven't been here. He votes yes to amend to take me off of being a chair on a committee.
So, boy, city council they better than the Congress with that Santos guy. You mean to tell me that they had a vote for you was going to be a chair of a committee?
Yes.
And the city council voted majority no. I wonder why.
So after the passing of former Councilwoman Linda Gray, that opened up the chairship for the Intergovernmental Committee. This was a committee that Shanae was a huge part of creating in the first part, right? And I believe you served as vice chair already.
Yeah, I served as vice chair. I was supposed to be chair, but in the first coup that happened on January 5th, 2020, in that first coup, or 2021, it was 2021. In that first coup that happened, I was removed by the 7. The mayor's 7. They removed me and was like, we don't want you to chair a committee. I'm like, okay, cool. And they didn't even tell me. I didn't even know that was happening. I knew something was happening, but I didn't know that was happening until I got there because they didn't have even the courage to reach out to me and say, hey, what committees do you want to be on? What do you want? Those 7 just worked together and did what they wanted, and I was excluded from the whole process. So that was number 1. So this second time around, when Councilmember Gray, she passed away, I said, I'm the vice chair. It was a committee I started. Let me just be chair. I want to be chair. Council President Congo was like, cool, put me down. But there are a group of people on council who did not want to see me chair. And when asked why, no one came up with the answer except for that I have ideas.
Do you know who voted against it?
Against it. So I know.
Was it public? Was it public?
It's public. Yeah, it's public.
Okay.
So some people voted president. There was some yeses, and then there was majority no's. And they were all from the Black older woman on council.
Oh, Jesus. Wow.
So, and I wanted to say, like, coming on council, there is no, like, for me, I feel like there's no true, like, leadership or mentorship for when people are new coming on council, unless you, like, fit into their way of thinking and their very cliquish, conniving ways. And I'm not a part of that on anybody's side.
Well, what I think people fail to realize, especially we have a lot of seniors who watch our show as well. You got to realize when you're dealing with millennials, when you're dealing with people who are younger, they have opinions, and their opinions is what they stand on. They stand on what they believe. And what is happening, as I'm kind of getting what you're sharing with me, is that because you don't go along to get along and laugh when nothing is funny, you being ostracized. And I think that's just horrible. But you know what? Can I give you a word of encouragement? And for those of you who are, when the scripture says weeping may endure for night, but joy comes in the morning, this is just a season.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't get discouraged. Let it play out. This season will be over, and I pray that when we have the next election, that there'll be a shift.
I agree. I'm looking for a shift. I'm not going to let it get to me. But I do know that like it's hard to like trust to build relationships when for me it feels so personal coming from the other end where they have no legitimate reason to say that I shouldn't serve on a chair or that yeah, just in that, and then even as Councilmember White comes on, you automatically vote yes to me, shows that the people who were in that group, those older Black women who are supposed to be mentors, who are supposed to be the leaders on that council, there's really none. There's no leaders on council. It's all over the place and disorganized, and there's no one to look up to. So for me, to be in that position and for them to do that, and then I knew it was happening, and then I got a call. It was like, I could take it off if you don't want this to happen. I'll just put Councilmember Harley on there because she wanted that seat. She wanted to be chair, and I was like, no, let the public see the type of stuff that they do. I want the public to see. I got so many calls, texts, emails about what happened, on how people was like, I'm sorry that happened to you. To see that happen on live TV, the way that they came at you. And I give a lot of respect to President Congo, because he pointed out some things like, y'all are really trying to stifle the growth of a new council person who's coming onto council. And as Black women, you're doing that. Y'all should be embarrassed. He said it was evil. And I can't remember the other word he used. He called it evil, what they were doing. He said this has never happened in council history ever before. And for me, I think it's an obsession. I think they're obsessed with me at this point, because for every legislation, they're like coming, like it's an obsession. Like, oh, Shanae has legislation. Let's figure out a way to get rid of it.
Well, their whole thing is about control. And I think because you can't be controlled, you're going to always be silenced as much as possible. But I think it's going to be a shift. And that's why I feel bad, because good people, this is why they want to go into politics, because they got to deal with this. But when Kobe said, I'm gonna run, even though I didn't get appointed, I pray he wins. You're going to get, the support will come. Even the front office, the administrative office, is going to have to be dealt with. So just let it go through this next year and continue to do the good work you do, because you're doing some good stuff, even as not the chair. You're doing some good stuff, and there's some good stuff happening, and you keep working for your community. The cry will be heard at the appropriate time.
And they were so focused on getting me off that, not having me chair that committee, that they didn't even know that I was placed on public safety. Like, so, a win is a win.
Wow.
That amendment didn't come. Take her off public safety too. Nah, they were so focused on that, they didn't even see where else I was placed.
Oh, wow. Well, they may have one coming next week. So let's do a minute for this. Let's move on from that one, and this police reform. Kobe and I talked a little bit about it, but there was the IMAC press conference that occurred, and I heard the mayor showed up to that and even spoke at it. I didn't understand that. That makes no sense at all. But
yeah, it was a smack in the face to the work that the community and leaders and organizations are trying to do for police reform in the city of Wilmington, when the mayor has been our biggest barrier, right? You need an administration who's bought in on making change for Wilmington PD, right? You need that. You have to have that for real change to happen. But when you have a mayor who's saying there's not an issue with Wilmington PD, he tried to say it's a United States system issue, not a Delaware Wilmington issue. We're a part of the United States. Right. So in that, there is an issue with Wilmington PD. You cannot think there is no changes that need to be made. And I'm not saying the police department is 100%, oh, it's terrible. And it's really, for me, more of a system than attacking or targeting like a department. It's a system.
Who's in charge of that press conference? Do you all know who was the head of that press conference? NAACP.
No, IMAC.
So IMAC would invite the mayor to speak at their press conference. I used to be a part of IMAC when we fought and when we would shut things down and protest those things to make sure that our community was heard. I don't know what they're doing now, and I don't have time to even care about it. But the point is, to invite him is a smack by itself. What do you think he's going to say? Yes, we are the problem.
Yeah, he didn't at all. Like at all. He praised and he thought that by appointing Hispanic chief of staff was like, oh yeah, we did it. We made it. You know, like no, representation is I love that Chief Campos is there, right? I think representation matters.
Okay.
Right? But after a certain level, that does not really address the systemic issues
Right.
that are happening because he's still a part of the system. As we know with Tyree Nichols, it was black, well, mainly black men.
Well, all
were-
five of them were.
All five of them were black men
Yeah.
who were beating on him
Yeah.
because we're embedded in the system, ingrained in white supremacy, which is a leg of anti-blackness.
Mhm.
So they're going to just live up and copy a system that they're in, right? So black, white, whatever, they're a part of a system that is going to attack and hurt and have violence towards black bodies. So at this point, for me, they didn't address anything for Delaware. For me, it was like, why didn't we talk about Delaware specific things and what you guys are going to do? So after this conference, what are they doing? Like, what are they
You
doing?
ain't asking me no question because I don't know
What are they doing? Like, what are they doing next? Like, what's
Well, you
happening?
wouldn't know, Kobe. What are they doing? You go to all those meetings and
The Mayor Purzycki still has not appointed anyone to the Civilian Review Board. We have been waiting for the appointment ships for months now. This is the second. This is about to go into the third budget season where we're going to give money to a Civilian Review Board that has not been established yet. And the reason why it has been taking so long is because of the mayor administration.
so if he doesn't appoint one, they can't meet.
And then it can't meet. So that's the problem we're having right now. We need the mayor to
See?
appoint. So like he's the biggest barrier. It's community response teams. We need community response teams. We need the external audit to happen on our police department so that they can give us recommendations on legislative wise and on administrative wise. How can we improve our police department internally? Because there's issues where black officers are reporting discrimination and racism happening within, which then makes it a toxic work environment. And then you want to say, city council help recruit more black people to come here. Why would I want to bring black people into a toxic work environment?
Yeah.
Being black is tough enough, and then I'm gonna go into a work environment that I'm gonna have to experience more racism and discrimination.
It's just interesting how they just cover up and do what they want to do, but I want to know what was the outcome of the press conference. You know?
Nothing. What
I
happened?
said my piece.
Yeah.
And my piece.
That's why you're not the city council first district.
Yeah, I got a call about that. My piece was what we're doing on the state level, right, to change Leah Board and continue to push a package of police and reform bills that includes eliminating police quotas across all 49 police departments, opening it up so that hopefully when our Wilmington Civilian Review Board finally gets appointed, they actually have the power to do something on that review board by making sure that they can get the proper misconduct records, that they can hold officers accountable, and eliminating the internal requirement for investigation in Leah Board. And then, of course, the last part is holding them accountable. We've done some things, right? We changed the use of force from a subjective to objective view. Right. Now we have to make sure that we're strengthening our external entities to empower them to be able to go after and hold officers accountable in the eyes of the court, so that when public trust is broken with the police department, whether it's coming from officer on officer crime or officer on community crime, that we can hold them accountable for their actions and make sure that they're not hired anywhere else. And if they deserve jail time, they get locked up behind bars like any other criminal.
I don't know what, like, to me, it's common sense. Like, if you do something wrong, you have to be held accountable, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
police officers should be held at that same that same as statue as everyone else. Like I do something wrong, I have to face the consequences. And like, why wouldn't you want that? And if you're a good cop, why wouldn't you want that?
Because you understand that most of them are dirty and you want to protect them and cover them, and that's not going to work.
Right.
We're going to come back to these because these topics, it's a shame that we're moving so fast now because we're running out of time. But the Homeless Bill of Rights, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was filed a few weeks ago, probably sometime in January. So it's really talking about like the unhoused community,
Mhm.
ways that we need to do better in making sure that they're protected,
Mhm.
in regards to services that are being provided to them, what type of resources are available to them. So it's really, I feel like it's like a feel-good legislation.
Mhm.
Um,
So it provides, it makes sure that no one is discriminated against based on their housing status.
Mhm.
It empowers individuals who are discriminated against to be able to go to the Human Rights Commission of the state and have them investigate the instance. So this could be in public libraries, this could be any public space. It also allows for more funding to be allocated towards addressing homelessness,
Mhm.
right? Not all funding, right? We still want to, make sure that our departments have some discretionary funds that they can use for other things if need be, right? But it directs more funding towards addressing homelessness. This isn't just a Wilmington issue. This is a statewide issue. Um, Georgetown talks about it almost every council meeting, the fact of their homeless population. Now, where they're at on a spectrum, that's a little different because you have the mayor who wants to help individuals, and then you have Council Woman Barlow who wants to put individuals on a bus and send them up to Wilmington. So you have a lot of discrimination, like Councilwoman Barlow's thoughts going
she
through
said
the
that out
ether.
loud.
She said that out loud. This is also the same councilwoman who sits on a board where they fly the Confederate flag and cut the check for the Confederate flag to fund white supremacy down there. So I'm not shocked by her at all. She has a long history of being unethical and probably should resign since she continues to say, "Oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that as a council person."
Mhm.
So she should just go home. But back to the HB 55,
Mhm.
the Homeless Bill of Rights. It's been a bill that's now been in the ether of the General Assembly for 12 years now, right?
Yeah.
I first worked on this bill when I was in high school. Then I worked down at Leg Hall. Then I left Leg Hall, and we're still working on it, right?
Wow.
And each year something new comes up that an individual representative uses their power to kind of hold it up. Last year, Representative Bill Carson, Representative Mitchell, and Representative Frank Cook were the ones who held this bill up in committee and killed it in committee. Representative Larry Mitchell is no longer there. He lost his election to Deshaun O'Neill. But Frank Cook and Bill Carson are still there. So there's still two people that were eyeing on this. And honestly, if you don't care enough about the homeless, you just have no morality whatsoever. But we're not shocked by either one of those two being against it either.
Wow. Well, you look, we got so much to cover today, so we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come right back with Kobe's Corner. We'll be right back. And we're back. Well, Kobe, what's going on with the Kobe Corner?
So first off, I want to kick it off with saying thank you, Pastor, for hosting our meeting here the other day with our new national president of the Sierra Club, Ben Jealous, who came into the state to learn more about what's going on here from an environmental perspective, right? We had community members from the Rose Hill community, Route 9 corridor here, some other organizations in the state that deal with the environment, conservation, energy, all able to come have a conversation about what's going on here in Delaware, especially in this area, right? And I thought it was important to make sure that we stayed in this area,
Good.
right? And that we were able to have a conversation in a place that is doing so good for the community, but also there's a lot of needs still left to be addressed. We got to visit the wetlands, the port, the landfill, Cherry Island, all the different places, Diamond State Refinery or whatever it is. So the conversation was centered about how can we take a look at where the Sierra Club is now. They're doing great work with energy and conservation, and bridge that gap with membership and with community work, and address it more from a environmental justice lens of things, right? So it was a great conversation. It started at 8 a.m. and we didn't finish until about 2:30. So it was a very busy day. Also this week, actually on the same exact day, our Secretary of Housing, Marsha Fudge, was here to visit the city of Wilmington. She took a tour of the Hope Center, of West End Neighborhood House, had a roundtable hosted by the Urban League at Bethel AME to talk about housing initiatives. This comes on the heels of two things. So President Biden and Vice President Harris rolled out their Renters Bill of Rights that I've talked about on the show. And what they kind of want to see there. Wilmington is now a predominantly renter city. So what can be done to really protect renters more and make sure that we're empowering their rights. And it was very interesting that some of the people around the round table had a slightly different view of things. But I think, thanks to our state housing director, Eugene Young, for really focusing in on some of the needs that he's hearing, that he sees. And, just a shout out to him. Me and him have been in some of the worst falling apart buildings in this state together, talking to residents about some of their needs.
He's a really good guy.
So, he shows up when he needs, when he is needed, and he really listens.
And can I know we got to go, but I just want to say people like Eugene reminds me that people get into powerful positions, you can still look out for your community.
Absolutely.
Because this brother has been in every aspect. He has been very supportive to all that he could. He even tried to help us at East Zion. So I'm just grateful for our brother Eugene Young.
Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Next, I also want to talk about some changes to our community that's coming up. SNAP benefits are changing. And that is going to go into effect in March. The EA, the emergency allotment funding, is changing the requirement, so it's going to go back to what it was pre-pandemic. So that's going to see people are going to see a reduction in how much benefits they're receiving, or they're going to be cycled off of SNAP benefits now that we're going back to our pre-pandemic standards with that.
And please pay attention to that, because there are many people who have been able to do better, with the SNAP program. Now that it's going pay attention to that. If you didn't get it before, you're not going to get it anymore. And if you did get it, but you're not going to get to the level of funding, you will not get the same amount of money.
Correct.
So please begin to plan and prepare yourself for a rougher season, as I would say.
And lastly, I just want to talk about the State of the Union. It happened on Tuesday of last week, and President Biden said the State of the Union is strong. Some of the things he highlighted was unemployment being down at the lowest of 50 years. He was heckled a little bit. I made a joke on Twitter that is this the House of Representatives or the House of Commons, right? The heckling is is something very common in the British Parliament, but we usually don't see that here. And it was just very interesting, and I think President Biden kind of did it in a unique way to pull them in. One of the biggest things that the Republicans have campaigned on this last year on a federal level was cutting Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. He talked about a small group of them wanting to do that, and they lost their minds. They called him a liar. They booed him and everything. And he just simply said, that's great. It sounds like that means it's not on the chopping block, and that we're going to work together so that the government doesn't step down. I think if you look at it, them wanting to put a sunset on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, would be detrimental to so many people who benefit from that right now. And it would, all you would need is just 1 year for it not to be voted on again. and it would be done. The system would be done, and the infrastructure would be gone. Other than that, he laid out his agenda of continuing to reduce prices for prescription drugs, protecting abortion rights, banning assault weapons. He had the family of Tyree Nichols there, where he made a push, pretty much saying that, you know, as a white man, he's never had to have to talk with Bo, with Hunter, with Ashley. But so many black and brown families have to have that talk.
Right.
And that no one in America should have to have that talk. And in order to start eliminating those conversations, you must hold the officers accountable for their actions to start changing the culture that we're seeing. And again, this isn't just a white versus black thing, right? This is a blue versus community thing. What we saw happen to Tyree Nichols was 5 black men beat him
to death
like he didn't matter.
Right.
What we see here in Delaware, what we just saw down in Rehoboth on St. Patrick's Day, was a young, untrained, hyped up white officer gunned down a black man for just partying on St. Patrick's Day. And I could talk about stories all day long.
Yeah.
It has to change. Right. And when officers do stuff like that, they need to be arrested, charged, and sentenced.
That's right.
And as simple as that.
That could do with everyone else. Absolutely. Listen, I today has been a full day, a full show. We had so much, and we didn't even cover all of our topics, and we're going to come back next week. Some stuff may be a little old news, but we're going to still share with you next week. But can I just take this last minute or and a half to just remind everyone of the great loss that this community have faced, and that is the transitioning of Bishop Aretha Morton. You've heard me share on my show earlier today that she was and will always be a giant in my personal life, because when I came here 18 years ago, she was one of the only ministers who stood by me and saw me through the rough moments and helped continue to encourage me. But I say to the Wilmington community, when they couldn't find anyone to help stop and curb the violence, she was on those streets. Her church was always an open place for people to find safe and refuge. Bishop Morton may not have been a big time hero here in Wilmington, but you will see in the services that will be rendered for her starting on the 19th and on the 20th that she was well respected and well loved. I appreciate her so very much. And I know many of you, I don't know if y'all got a chance to even spend any time with her, but she was really a great giant. If you want to share anything at this point, you certainly can.
Yeah, so I met her when I was a child, right? But it wasn't until I would say maybe around like 2017 that I actually got to know her, got to spend time and got to talk and just learn from her. And then as I grew as a person, as a man, and as an organizer as well, too, the talks that we were able to have and share. One of the most fondest moments I'll have of her is when we were all here meeting, talking about how we can come together as a community, how Black men and Black women need to support one another, and how exactly can we do that in a way that also bridges the 2 generations, right? With me being the youngest in the room and her being the elder of the room. So I think, those are the opportunities and memories that I'll cherish. I really do wish I got to know her better and learn more from her.
Amen.
So I didn't know her at all. I heard of her, but I haven't met her. I don't think I have.
Yeah.
But I heard great things about her.
Yeah.
And some of the work that she has done in the community. So I just send condolences to her family and yeah.
And I'll say this, every time there was an issue, the mayor, whether it be this current mayor or others before him, the governors, county execs, they always called to find out where is Aretha Morton on this issue. She always was a straight shooter. And that's why I loved her so much. She would tell me, Curry, chill, baby. That was her line. chill, baby. And there were times I was fired up and ready to fight the whole world. And she said, no, baby, no, don't do that. She was a good woman. I get sad and get a little emotional because God only put a few people in your life who will impact your life, who are real. And she was one of those persons. So while there'll be many parading and talking about how much they loved her, but wasn't there to support her. And many times she found herself by herself, but she encouraged me out of some of those desert moments. And I want to encourage the Tabernacle family, stay strong. I want to encourage her son. Donald, you were just on a show a couple of weeks ago with me, while we were enjoying talking about who was the real son and who was the most favorite son, you or I. I still stand on I was, because I was definitely appointed. But then I also want to just give a little shout out to Sister Elder Janesta Ray. She took care of Bishop. People always talk about how much they love you. Every step she took, every move she made, Janesta made sure she was in sync. She never wanted to be in the highlights. So Sister Janesta, Elder Ray, whichever language y'all want to call her, thank you for what you did for Bishop and for the whole Morton family. We're praying for you, and I pray that God's comfort will be upon you. That's our show for today. And I thank you so very much for taking the time to talk with us today. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
Shanae Darby.
I'll see you later.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
And talk soon.